Year 10 and 11, welcome to some additional notes on Ignorance and Want from A Christmas Carol. They're just additional notes, it's nothing over the top. It's anybody aiming for the grade 7, the grade 8 and the grade 9 that might need just a little bit of extra detail in terms of analysis. So we'll just start off very, very simply. As we know, Dickens's novella is allegorical and our characters tend to stand for something else. So for Ignorance and Want then, we've got that yes, they are symbolic of the poor, but they are more specifically the industrial poor who work away in workshops and factories that are struggling to make ends meet. And obviously they are therefore victims of deprivation. Remember, this was one of Dickens's biggest problems with Victorian society. Also, when we're taking our analysis further, don't forget the children appear from the robes of the ghost. So the fact that they come from a ghost is symbolising how the poor have been forgotten and they are hidden away. Metaphorically, it's as if they are neglected by society. If we go to some language analysis then from the section about ignorance and want, we get a list of adjectives. We get wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. So when you're thinking about your analysis there, if we start with the adjective wretched, wretched literally means a very unhappy or unfortunate state, or it is used to express anger or annoyance. So again, when we're talking literally here, you could argue that this use of the adjective wretched is highlighting the unfortunate state that not only the poor find themselves in, but more particularly our vulnerable children who are poor. Again, I suppose you could then apply that to Tiny Tim, because remember, we are warned throughout the novella that he's going to die. And on the flip side of that, if you wanted an additional or an alternative analysis, part of your analysis there, you could argue that the use of that word in its additional meaning to express anger and annoyance is therefore Dickens himself. And Dickens, remember, uses his novella as a political diatribe to critique society. And this word kind of does that there. If you go to abject, remember for a grade 7, 8 and 9, we need to be judicious. So if we go to abject, that literally means extremely unpleasant and degrading. A person or their behaviour completely without pride or dignity, self-abasing. So again, when we're talking about these two little children that come out the foldings, the fact that they're unpleasant and degrading. Now, unpleasant, straightforward analysis. When we start looking at degrading, it's almost as if the children's condition worsens over time because of the treatment that they face within this Victorian society. And then obviously your third analysis there, after you go unpleasant and degrading, your third analysis could potentially say that they don't have pride or dignity. Well, of course they don't, because I suppose in this instance it's almost survival, and we get that from wolfish as well, which I'm going to analyse in a moment. If I would pick those two to analyse in terms of being judicious, because miserable and hideous are quite straightforward. But if you're struggling to come up with analysis, then naturally build up some confidence by analysing the adjective hideous or miserable. I've just put there, obviously, that hideous, means repulsive. So again, think about Dickens' message there. More suggestions then in terms of your analysis are here. We get ragged, scowling, wolfish. So if we go literal again, ragged, not controlled, uneven, or suffering from exhaustion and stress. So naturally, when I've gave you the initial slide there about symbolic of the industrial poor, this directly relates to this adjective. They are exhausted and they are stressed because of the conditions that they face. This also takes on the autobiographical angle as well, because Dickens faced this himself. Wolfish is obviously anthropomorphism. It's an animalistic quality. I'm going to give you a better analysis here about wolves and symbolism. So please, if you need to note this down, do so. But as I've put on the bottom there, why is it that he's comparing the children to animals? Think about the message. Is he saying that the mistreatment of the poor is humane and bordering on animalistic? If you wanted to be really, really different in terms of analysis and original, then I've got this about wolves and symbolism. Now, in Europe, and I do think you need to be specific there, wolves are symbolic of teachers. And they are seen as teachers that instruct us in our daily lives and the troubles that we go through. The lessons that the wolf or the wolves teach are not easy to swallow, but are necessary. So, when we're talking about this book, when we are talking about Scrooge learning lessons from the ghosts, then this wolf and this comparison of the children to wolves and wolfish behaviour becomes more prominent and becomes more important, because obviously the ghosts here are teaching Scrooge about society, Christmas, generosity, the plight of the poor. So this, I think we've got to assume that Dickens didn't choose the wolf by accident, so that they will take you to a more original analysis. So please note that down. I suppose we can't ignore the fact that they are named Ignorance and Want, and we've got the biblical link for the girl is want, which is Eve and temptation, and the idea, that when she is tempted out of want to eat the apple, that all of mankind is punished. Again, think of Dickens's link there. Is it that the greed of people like Scrooge and the greed of the wealthy who don't share or who don't recognise the desperation of the poor or the deprivation of the poor, they are ruining mankind? Are we all punished because of their actions? Is that what Dickens is saying? And then obviously ignorance links to Dickens's issue with the poor. The idea that the wealthy members of society were unaware about, as I say, the treatment of the poor, and the fact that they were suffering, and not just suffering, but severely suffering. We get a reference to the devils lurking around the children as well. And again, if you wanted to do symbolism there, you've got to talk about, Christianity identifies the devil, Satan, with the serpent, as we've just mentioned with Adam and Eve there. And Eve is obviously tempted by the serpent to eat the fruit, and describes him as the fallen angel who terrorizes the world through evil. The devil, we know, is the antithesis of the truth, and shall be condemned together with the fallen angels. So again, the fact that devils lurk around the children is not an accident, and the devil being synonymous with evil is highlighting or accentuating the idea that they are suffering at the hands of mankind in terms of an evil deed. Our children are, as we've already discussed, ragged, exhausted, stressed. They look repulsive. It's this idea that the younger generations are being ruined by society, and I suppose more specifically the rich, aren't they? And if we go even further with our analysis, the devil can be linked to the word monster, and throughout the book we've had subtle instances of Scrooge being compared to various different things, and one of them is he is described as an ogre, isn't he? And if we're talking about, obviously, ignorance and want, we've got the devil, and we want to loosely link that to monster, then a monster is any creature usually found in legends or horrors, so that's where the devil comes in, and that is often hideous and may produce fear or physical harm by its appearance. The word monster, though, derives from the Latin monstrum, meaning aberrant occurrence, usually biological, that was taken as a sign that something was wrong within the natural order. So again, here we've got this undertone of what Dickens's message is that there's something wrong with the natural order of society and the class system if some people are prospering and some people are suffering. And then again, ask yourself, has mankind created a monster in the Victorian era, in the sense that our poor are on their knees, aren't they, almost begging for help and unfortunately not receiving it. In the ignorance and want extract, there is other things to analyse. I was just looking at more judicious things. Don't forget, you can analyse the repetition of no, when it says no change, no degradation, no perversion. You can analyse the juxtaposition of graceful, shrivelled, the fact that they're pulled into shreds. So there is other things to analyse there. I was just trying to give you separate notes. If you want my full video on ignorance and want and poverty, then please check the YouTube channel. I hope this has been useful. If you need any more of my videos, just type Stacey Ray into YouTube, and massive good luck in your English literature exam.